Hello, this is Cheon, and I'm about to crack another pack of Battle for Zendikar. Expedition. Okay, let's do it. Sweaty hands, I'm getting nervous. All right, here we go. Let's dive right in. We have Reclaiming Vines, also known as Creeping Mold. This is a card that should belong in your sideboard. You know, it's surprisingly, it could be brought in against decks that have a ton of Awaken. For the most part, you don't want to take this card. Next, we have Salvage Drone, a 1-mana 1/1. Doesn't do a whole lot. This is not something that I'm looking to take. Not even in a blue-black ingest deck. It just doesn't have evasion. Doesn't do enough. Next, we have Swarm Surge. Now, when you first look at this card, it looks pretty bad. But I've actually found that in the very very heavy Devoid decks, you end up with like 14 or 15 colorless creatures, and in that case, this card actually is quite powerful. You have just a ton of guys that attack, and you know, it's not something you need to take early because usually it tables, but I've actually really wanted to have 1 or 2 copies of Swarm Surge in my aggressive Devoid decks. Next, we have Reckless Cohort. It's a decent 2-drop if you're really aggressive and if you have a lot of allies. The drawback is pretty big here, so this is not something I want to take early. Next, we have Felidar Cub. Just another random 2-drop. Very vanilla, not something you want to take early. Next, we have Bone Splinters. This is a removal spell. Now, this is something that you could play if you have ways to generate tokens. If I'm just playing a bunch of normal creatures, this is not the type of card that you want to take. But once you end up, in a deck that's blue-black that can produce a bunch of Scions, or green-black, this is a card that moves up in the rankings. But once again, not something you want to take early unless the pack is very bad. Next, we have Unnatural Aggression. Now, this is a card that traditionally has been really powerful in... This type of effect has traditionally been very powerful, fight effects, but I found that in this format, it's just not that great. It's not something that I'm looking to take early. Creatures are kind of awkwardly sized, they're pretty small, and a lot of times the other fight effects are just better. You have Pit Fight, which costs 2 mana, Prey Upon, that costs 1 mana, and we have Hunt the Weak, which gives +1/+1 counters, and this card does none of those things. Next, we have Sandstone Bridge. I think most of the tap lines are playable, but once again, this is a card you don't take early. And just say this pack is pretty bad so far. Now we have Cloud Manta. We have a 4-mana 3/2 flyer. This is probably the pick right now, but not something that I'm excited to take. Next, we have Scour from Existence, a very slow, inefficient removal spell, something you don't really want to be playing. I have played it from time to time, but it's a filler card, so we'll put that in this area. All right, moving into the uncommons, we have Bloodbond Vampire, 4-mana 3/3 Vampire Ally. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Bloodbond Vampire. Now, this card is very powerful. This is a card that obviously goes in the Black-White Allies deck, which has a lot of ways to drain your opponents with Colostra Healer and multiple ways to gain life. And in that archetype, this is a really high pick. And because of that upside, this is definitely my slam dunk first pick out of this pack for now. Here we have Core Entanglers, 5-mana 3/4. When Core Entangler comes into play or another ally, tap target creature. This is a fine card in the ally deck, but if I were to choose between this or the Bloodbond Vampire, I would definitely take the Vampire. But it's fine. Next, we have Malakir Familiar, 3-mana 2/1 Flying Death Touch. That's just pretty good stats already. It can trade with anything, gives you evasion. In the life gain deck, it does give you the pump effect. When I first read this card, I thought it gave +1/+1 counters. That would just be busted, but it doesn't. I think this is kind of a close pick between this and the Bloodbond Vampire. The Malakir Familiar is a playable card in any black deck, whereas the Bloodbond Vampire really shines in the life gain deck. But I think early on, I would just take the upside of the Bloodbond Vampire. If you don't get that many life gain effects, it's still a Hill Giant. It's not great, but the fact that this guy can just get out of hand just kind of makes me want to take that over the Malakir Familiar. And next, we have Ugin's Insight. Ooh, I like this card a lot. It says draw cards on it. I mean, what Magic player doesn't like to draw cards? Just give you value. And this is my first pick. I love this card. This card's fantastic. And there's no worse feeling than when your opponent casts an Ugin's Insight and just keeps all the cards on top, because you just know you've lost the game. So this just gives you card advantage. And I mean, the Bloodbond Vampire is fine, but my pick would be Ugin's Insight. And Dragon Token. All right. So yeah, in this pack, I would definitely take Ugin's Insight, with Bloodbond Vampire being the second choice.